On June 1, 1963, Kenyatta was sworn in as the Prime Minister of the autonomous Kenyan government, while Queen Elizabeth II remained the head of state. Kenyatta's personality played a crucial role in shaping the new state, as evident in the renaming of Nairobi's Delamere Avenue to Kenyatta Avenue and the erection of a bronze statue in his honor. His speeches were published in a collection titled Harambee. Initially, Kenyatta expressed willingness to merge Kenya with Tanganyika, Uganda, and Zanzibar to form an East African federation. Kenya's first cabinet included representatives from various tribal groups. Discussions were held with Julius Nyerere and Ugandan President Milton Obote, aiming to accomplish the federation by the end of the year. However, Kenyatta became hesitant, and the federation did not materialize by 1964. While he sought good relations with white settlers, he did not extend the same efforts to the Indian minority, harboring resentment toward them. Kenyatta encouraged remaining Mau Mau fighters to reintegrate into society. The independence celebration took place on December 12, 1963, where Kenyatta assumed control, and disputes with Somalia over the northern frontier district persisted. Throughout his rule, Kenyatta faced opposition from Somalia and domestic challenges. He sent soldiers to combat violence in the northern frontier district and called on the British Army to quell a mutiny by sections of the army in Nairobi. Kenyatta aimed to contain opposition by dissolving KADU and incorporating its members into KANU, effectively establishing a de facto one-party state. Presidency, 1964 to 1978. After Kenya declared itself a republic in December 1964, Jomo Kenyatta assumed the position of executive president, consolidating the roles of head of state and head of government. Throughout 1965 and 1966, constitutional amendments bolstered the president's power, including the authority to detain individuals without trial in cases of perceived threats to national security. To garner support from the Luo ethnic group, Kenyatta appointed Ojinga Odinga as his vice president. However, the dominance of the Kikuyu elite, who held key government and administrative positions, led to a perception that independence merely replaced British dominance with Kikuyu dominance. Kenyatta's government emphasized the importance of forgiveness and moving forward, preserving certain elements of the colonial order, particularly in law and order. While indigenous African cultures were celebrated and efforts were made to uplift them, the influence of Western culture remained strong among the elites. Economic policies focused on capitalist principles, aiming for economic growth rather than equal redistribution. Foreign investment was encouraged, and multinational corporations played a dominant role in Kenya's economy. Kenyatta's administration pursued an African socialist model, advocating for indigenous control of the economy and pushing for black capitalism. Measures were implemented to replace Asian-owned businesses with African-owned enterprises. However, corruption became pervasive, with Kenyatta and his family involved in enriching themselves through property acquisitions and various business ventures. Despite these challenges, Kenya experienced remarkable economic growth under Kenyatta's leadership, particularly in the agricultural sector with a focus on cash crops like tea and coffee. Kenya's economic success during this period was exceptional compared to many other African countries, with an average annual growth rate of 6.4% from 1965 to 1980. Kenyatta's presidency in Kenya witnessed significant reforms in land ownership, healthcare, education, and foreign policy. Land redistribution was a crucial issue, stemming from the grievances against British colonialists. Through negotiations, Britain provided funds to buy out white farmers and redistribute the land among the indigenous population. However, the redistribution often favored the ruling party's supporters, leading to criticism. Kenyatta's government aimed to address rural-to-urban migration, unemployment, and housing shortages but faced challenges in controlling these issues. The government also sought to control trade unions and Africanize the civil service, leading to the growth of the public sector and the expansion of the indigenous middle class. In terms of education, the government focused on expanding educational facilities, particularly secondary and higher education, to train African personnel for civil service and other professional positions. The establishment of the University of Nairobi and Kenyatta University marked significant milestones. Although universal primary education was not fully achieved, progress was made, and a majority of Kenyan children received primary education. Improving healthcare services was another priority, with the long-term goal of establishing a system of free, universal medical care. The government increased the number of doctors and registered nurses, resulting in improved healthcare and an increase in life expectancy. In foreign policy, Kenyatta pursued a policy of positive non-alignment while maintaining a pro-Western and pro-British stance. Kenya was a member of the British Commonwealth and used its influence to pressure apartheid regimes in South Africa and Rhodesia. The country also played a mediating role in the Congo crisis, despite opposition from white far-right activists. Kenyatta maintained warm relationships with the United States and Israel. His government was anti-communist, and he criticized both East and West imperialism. Relations with China and the Soviet Union were strained, leading to the expulsion of diplomats and the closure of educational institutions linked to Soviet influence. Overall, Kenyatta's presidency brought about significant changes in land ownership, healthcare, education, and foreign policy in Kenya. While there were challenges and criticisms, his administration made progress in addressing key issues and laying the foundation for future developments. Dissent and the consolidation of power. Jomo Kenyatta aimed to establish Kenya as a one-party state, viewing it as a better way to achieve national unity compared to a multi-party system. In the early years of independence, he centralized control of the government, dismantling the autonomy of provinces to prevent the formation of ethnic power bases. Kenyatta believed that centralized governance was necessary to address the increasing demands for local services and expedite economic development. Reforms were initiated to streamline local government operations, culminating in the Transfer of Functions Act in 1969, which shifted major services from provincial to central control by terminating grants to local authorities. Within Kenyatta's own Kenya African National Union (KANU) party, divisions arose, leading to opposition against his government. The assassination of prominent leftist politician P.O. Pinto in 1965 intensified this opposition. Although Kenyatta denounced the assassination, intelligence agencies suspected his own bodyguards' involvement. Relations between Kenyatta and his vice president, Oginga Odinga, became strained, and Odinga's position was significantly weakened at the 1966 party conference. Odinga eventually resigned from his post and founded the Kenya People's Union (KPU), presenting a socialist alternative to Kenyatta's government. The KPU challenged Kenyatta's rule and was seen by him as a communist-inspired plot. The Kenyan parliament swiftly amended the constitution to require defectors from KANU to stand for re-election, jeopardizing their seats. In the ensuing election of June 1966, KANU retained widespread support, while the KPU faced localized violence hindering its campaign efforts. Although legally recognized as the official opposition, the KPU posed a significant challenge to Kenyatta's leadership. In 1969, the assassination of Tom Mboya, a prominent Luo KANU politician, sparked tensions between the Kikuyu and other ethnic groups. Suspicions arose that Kenyatta's government was involved in Mboya's death. Kenyatta's visit to Luo territory in Kisumu led to violent clashes with the crowd, resulting in casualties. To counter the KPU's rise, Kenyatta introduced oathing, a traditional Kikuyu loyalty ceremony, but faced condemnation from the Christian establishment. Eventually, the oathing was discontinued, and leaders from different ethnic groups were invited to a meeting in Gatundu. Kenyatta's government resorted to undemocratic measures to suppress opposition, employing laws on detention and deportation. The public security, detained and restricted persons, regulations allowed authorities to arrest and detain individuals indefinitely without trial. In October 1969, the government banned the KPU and detained Odinga. With the organized opposition eliminated, Kenya reverted to a de facto one-party state. The general election in December 1969, where only KANU candidates participated, solidified Kenyatta's hold on power. Over the following years, other political and intellectual figures critical of Kenyatta's administration were detained or imprisoned, while some individuals, such as Ronald Ngala and Josiah Mwangi Kariuki, were killed under suspicious circumstances, raising speculations of government involvement. Illness and passing, Jomo Kenyatta battled various health issues for years, including 2 strokes in 1966 and 1968. He suffered from gout and heart problems, concealing his ailments from the public. By 1970, his health deteriorated, and senility set in. Ineffectively governing by 1975, he relied on a close circle of Kikuyu associates, Koinange, Gichuru, Mungai, and Jonjo, who accompanied him in public. However, they faced opposition from KANU backbenchers led by Josiah Mwangi Kariuki, who was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered in March 1975. This event marked a decline in support for Kenyatta and his government. In 1977, Kenyatta suffered additional strokes or heart attacks. On August 22, 1978, he passed away from a heart attack at the State House in Mombasa. The Kenyan government had prepared for his death since his 1968 stroke, seeking British assistance for organizing his state funeral. The funeral, held at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, imitated the structure of Winston Churchill's funeral, showcasing Kenya as a modern nation. International figures, including Prince Charles, heads of state from African countries, and leaders from India and Pakistan, attended the funeral. Kenyatta's body was laid to rest in a mausoleum on the grounds of the Parliament buildings in Nairobi. The issue of succession had been a topic of debate, and Kenyatta had not definitively designated a successor. The Kikuyu clique around him attempted to prevent Vice President Moi, a Kalenjin, from automatically assuming the presidency but faced opposition. Following Kenyatta's death, the transition of power proceeded smoothly, surprising observers. Moi became acting president for a 90-day interim period and later assumed the presidency after being elected KANU president and president of Kenya itself. While expressing loyalty to Kenyatta, Moi criticized the corruption and capitalist practices of the previous era. In 1982, he would establish a de jure one-party state by amending the Kenyan constitution. Political ideology, Jomo Kenyatta, the Kenyan leader and nationalist, held a political ideology rooted in African nationalism and anti-colonialism. He believed that European colonial rule in Africa needed to come to an end, as it had exploited Africa's resources for the benefit of the colonizers rather than the African population. Kenyatta sought independence not just for self-rule but also to dismantle the color bar, eradicate patronizing attitudes, and combat racist sentiments held by Kenya's white minority. Throughout his life, Kenyatta emphasized the importance of human dignity, freedom, tolerance, and peace. He advocated for the right of all individuals to develop peacefully according to their own wishes. While he did not align himself with specific social philosophies or slogans, he was described as politically conservative, likely influenced by his background in functionalist anthropology. His conservatism worked in collaboration with imperial powers and was hostile toward radical politics. Kenyatta was characterized as a pragmatist and a moderate. He had a talent for appealing to African sentiments and knew how to navigate political issues by containing or utilizing his militant supporters. He absorbed British political approaches such as pragmatism, crisis-based problem-solving, and tolerance in dealing with differing opinions. Kenyatta believed in the importance of authority, tradition, self-help, and hard work for societal development. Despite wrestling with contradictions between his conservative desire for traditional customs and his reformist inclinations towards Western modernity, he aimed to foster a non-tribalized Kenyan nationalism. Regarding Pan-Africanism and socialism, Kenyatta had associations with Marxist and radical Pan-Africanist individuals during his time in Britain. However, as Kenya's leader, he distanced himself from Marxism and rejected it as a useful framework for analyzing his country's socio-economic situation. Kenyatta's government projected capitalism as an African ideology and considered communism or socialism as foreign and dangerous. On a personal level, Kenyatta was a flamboyant and extroverted figure who enjoyed being at the center of attention. He had a diverse wardrobe and was known for his elaborate dressing style. Kenyatta possessed the ability to present himself differently to different people. And he kept his true intentions and abilities hidden. He was described as a showman, a rebel at heart, and someone who embraced earthly pleasures. Kenyatta's identity was shaped by colonial institutions and exhibited a blend of Western modernity and his Kikuyu heritage. He was a skilled orator, author, and editor, and he had dictatorial tendencies and a temper. Although he had no racist inclinations towards white Europeans and welcomed their support, he held some reservations about Indians whom he believed exploited indigenous Africans in Kenya. In his personal life, Kenyatta practiced polygamy and had multiple relationships with women. He was regarded as an affectionate father, although frequently absent. While he described himself as a Christian, his religious beliefs were not strictly aligned with a particular denomination. He had an interest in various religions and appreciated the Bible but criticized European missionaries for their dismissive attitude towards African traditions, particularly ancestor veneration. In summary, Jomo Kenyatta's political ideology was rooted in African nationalism and anti-colonialism. He sought to achieve independence, eradicate racism, and promote human dignity and freedom. While not subscribing to specific social philosophies, he exhibited pragmatism and moderation in his approach. On a personal level, he was a flamboyant figure who blended Western modernity with his African heritage. Legacy: James Butler's statue of Kenyatta, 1971, stands proudly at the KICC in Nairobi, representing his enduring legacy. Within Kenya, Kenyatta earned the revered title of Father of the Nation and was affectionately called Mzee, meaning Grand Old Man, in Swahili. From 1963 until his passing, Kenyatta became a symbol of Kenyan nationalism, intertwining his persona with the nation's identity. His influence extended beyond Kenya's borders, gaining admiration from both African leaders and the international community. Kenyatta's anti-communist stance endeared him to Western countries, who celebrated him as a beloved elder statesman. He received prestigious awards from Pope Paul VI and the South Korean government, solidifying his reputation as a respected figure. Scholars recognized Kenyatta's political acumen, describing him as one of Africa's shrewdest politicians and a key architect of African nationalist accomplishments. He became an inspiration and beacon of hope for oppressed people beyond Kenya. Embodying the spirit of modern African nationalism, under Kenyatta's leadership, Kenya witnessed significant progress in healthcare and education. The nation surpassed sub-Saharan Africa in life expectancy rates, while primary, secondary, and higher education expanded substantially. Kenyatta's government peacefully dismantled the colonial-era system of racial segregation, fostering unity and equality in schools, public facilities, and social clubs. Initially, white settlers and colonial authorities despised Kenyatta, viewing him as a troublemaker and a threat. However, by 1964, perceptions had shifted, and many white settlers affectionately referred to him as "good old Mzee." Kenyatta's message of reconciliation and forgiveness played a crucial role in healing the nation's wounds and promoting unity. Critics, particularly among younger generations, regarded Kenyatta as a conservative force, lacking the vision for radical societal transformation. They compared Kenya unfavorably to Tanzania under Julius Nyerere, highlighting Kenyatta's failure to address pressing social issues. Some left-leaning intellectuals accused Kenyatta of representing a bourgeois elite and facilitating neo-colonial dominance. They believed he fell short of the expectations placed upon him as a leader destined to lead his people to a truly equitable society. Despite these criticisms, Kenyatta's contributions to Kenya's independence and nation-building remain indisputable. He played a pivotal role in shaping the narrative of African freedom, but his presidency was also marked by the establishment of authoritarian practices, one-party rule, and ethnic favoritism. Kenyatta's government faced accusations of land allocation benefiting his family, leading to tensions and violent clashes in certain regions. In conclusion, Jomo Kenyatta's legacy as the father of the nation endures, with his leadership leaving a lasting impact on Kenya's development. He is remembered as a symbol of Kenyan nationalism, admired by Africans and respected by the international community. While his tenure faced criticism for its shortcomings, Kenyatta's contributions to healthcare, education, and the pursuit of independence remain significant aspects of his legacy.